It's never too late. We hear it all the time, a simple phrase. Yet it carries the weight of possibilities. It's a lighthouse in a storm, a whisper of hope in the darkest hour. It reminds us that no matter how bleak things seem, there's always a chance for change, for redemption, for a brand new start. This is the story of Orion, a man who embodied this very spirit. He lived a life seemingly boxed in by failures, his dreams feeling as distant as the stars he'd gaze upon from his tiny room. But Orion never let go of that flicker of hope, that belief in the power of never too late. Even when his world crumbled around him, even when fate dealt him a hand that seemed impossible to play, Orion clung to that belief, and in a twist of fate as unexpected as it was extraordinary, he got a second chance, a chance to rewrite his story in a way he could have never imagined. This is his story. Orion's world was a small, cramped room. Sunlight struggled to penetrate the dusty window, casting long shadows that danced with the dust motes. Orion sat hunched over his desk, the weight of his failures pressing down on him like a physical burden. Years of trying, years of falling short had worn him down. He had always dreamed of a life beyond these four walls, a life filled with purpose and achievement. He poured his heart and soul into his studies, sacrificing everything for a chance at a brighter future. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Exam after exam he faced disappointment. Each failure chipped away at his confidence, leaving him feeling lost and defeated. His once bright eyes, now clouded with doubt, reflected the dimness of his surroundings. Orion felt like a failure trapped in a cage of his own making, yet deep down a tiny ember of hope refused to be extinguished. "It's never too late," he whispered to himself, clinging to the words like a lifeline. He knew he had one last chance, one final opportunity to break free from the shackles of his past. The day of the results arrived, a day that held the power to change Orion's life forever. His heart pounded in his chest, a frantic drumbeat against his ribs. He walked with leaden steps, each one heavier than the last, towards the crowded notice board. The air crackled with anticipation and anxiety. Orion scanned the list of names, his eyes darting back and forth, searching for his own. And then he saw it, his name printed in black and white. His breath caught in his throat. He had failed, again, by a single mark. One measly mark stood between him and his dreams, one mark that felt like an insurmountable chasm. Despair washed over him, threatening to drown him in its depths. The world around him faded into a blur of noise and color, meaningless and distant. Orion stumbled back, his legs giving way beneath him. The weight of his failure, heavier than ever before, threatened to crush him. The single mark, that cruel reminder of his shortcomings, echoed in his mind, mocking his efforts, his dreams, his very existence. Section 4. The world fades to black. Orion stumbled back to his room, the weight of the world on his shoulders. The walls, once a prison, now felt like the only solace he had left. He sank onto his bed, the springs groaning in protest, and buried his head in his hands. A strange pressure built in his chest, a tightness that spread through his body like a wildfire. He gasped for air, his vision blurring at the edges. He tried to call out, to reach for something, anything, but his voice died in his throat. The world began to spin, faster and faster, until it was nothing but a dizzying kaleidoscope of light and shadow, and then everything went black. When Orion opened his eyes again, he was met with darkness. But this darkness was different. It wasn't the suffocating darkness of his room, but a vast, limitless expanse. He felt weightless, untethered, adrift in a sea of nothingness. Was this death? Had his final failure finally extinguished the last flicker of hope within him? Section 5. A flicker in the darkness. Then, a pinpoint of light pierced the darkness. It grew, slowly at first, then with increasing intensity, until it blossomed into a blinding white light. Orion shielded his eyes, squinting against the brightness. As his vision adjusted, he found himself in a place unlike any he had ever seen before. Gone was the cramped, dusty room of his past. In its place was a vast, verdant field, bathed in the warm glow of a golden sun. A gentle breeze rustled through the tall grass, carrying with it the sweet scent of wildflowers. The air buzzed with the sound of insects, a symphony of life that filled him with a sense of peace he had never known. Orion rose to his feet, his legs feeling strangely strong and steady. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the clean, crisp air. He felt different, lighter, somehow, as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Section 6. A second chance, unexpected and unfamiliar. He looked down at his hands. They were the hands of a young man, strong and calloused. He ran his fingers through his hair, surprised to find it thick and full. He was young again, but how? As he explored his surroundings, he began to realize the impossible truth. He wasn't dead. Not in the traditional sense, anyway. He had been given a second chance, a chance to live again, to right his wrongs, to chase his dreams anew. But this new life wasn't a continuation of his old one. It wasn't the familiar world he knew. It was a fresh start, a blank canvas upon which he could paint a new destiny. He didn't know how or why he had been given this gift, but he vowed to make the most of it. This time, he wouldn't let fear or doubt hold him back. This time, he would embrace every opportunity, every challenge, every chance to learn and grow. He had been given a second chance at life, and he was determined to make it count. Section 7. The Boy with Stars in His Eyes. Orion took a deep breath and stepped forward, his heart filled with a renewed sense of hope. He didn't know what the future held, but he was ready to face it head-on. The weight of his past failures no longer burdened him. He looked up at the sky, a vast expanse of blue dotted with fluffy white clouds. He smiled. It was a new day, a new beginning. He was no longer the man haunted by his failures, but a young man with stars in his eyes and a world of possibilities at his feet. "It's never too late," he whispered, the words taking on a whole new meaning. He had been given a second chance, a gift more precious than he could have ever imagined, and he was determined to make the most of every single moment. Orion's journey was far from over. In fact, it had just begun, and this time he knew anything was possible.